gravy, and he's a very good business to business salesperson. And Jeb's tactic that he taught me through his book was that you always ask to take notes in an interview, because it starts a chain of yeses. As you said, Barb, nobody tells you can't take notes, but it primes the pump, as I said earlier, to indicate another yes. And the whole technique and the tactic is to build a progressively higher chain of yeses, starting with something little. May I please take notes? And you have to ask it in an affirmative in this case, because you can't. If you say, "Do you mind if I take notes?" the answer is no. And if you say, "Can I take some notes?" the answer is absolutely yes. So it starts them in that positive mindset, if you will, about you. And then, of course, you have to ask other questions to get other yeses and things like that. And eventually, the last question is, do you want to hire me? And you don't necessarily ask that to them in the interview, but that comes down the road. So that's the technique that I guess everybody now knows, which is great.
Yeah, I like that.
I thought it was too. I've had some pretty good success with it, which is great. So, all right. So, still in the interview, Barb, when a hiring prospect shows up, what are you expecting out of them? What makes you say, that person has my attention?
Well, they tell you to always dress for the job that you want. Not always the job you're interviewing for, but the job that you want. So if you're straight out of college and the only position that they have is a low IT position, but you want to be the IT manager someday, then dress nicer, because dress for that position. So I want you to show up looking good, obviously. I also want you to be prepared. And I don't mean, and we talked about, reviewing the job description.
Yes.
But the prepared is also, when they tell you to show up early, use the restroom if you need to. Do all the things that you need to take care of, rather than you're interviewing at 11 and you show up at 11 and then 15 minutes later you're finally ready to talk.
Wow.
So
I'm sure you've had plenty of those.
Well, because people ask you if you want something to drink, or and normally the way that it goes now is, for example, the company that I'm working at, there's a receptionist, so she'll greet you and get you situated in a conference room, find out if you want something to drink, and that whole process takes a little while. And then the other thing is, I always let her know when someone's coming in for an interview, because she now does what I did back in the day and stands and talks to that person for a few minutes. They tell you, and we've all seen this too, the way you treat the receptionist or the maintenance man, if he has to stop by, the way you talk to people and treat all of them means a lot. So your character's being watched as much as how you're answering the questions. Right.
Actually, one of the best pieces of career advice I ever got was from my dad. And he said, when you get out into the business world, we've always taught you to treat people who are serving you at a restaurant incredibly well, because you will be at dinner someday with somebody important and they will be watching. So don't,
it's true.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So, okay. Yeah. And I guess that preparedness is what maybe snaps a person to your attention, or is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say being prepared, and also, I get to see how you interact with other people, usually because of where the conference room is. And then I can see, what's happening, what you're doing when I walk in the door. Are you flipping through your phone? Are you tapping your fingers? What it is, because that speaks more to your personality than like how you can wait, how patient you are to wait for someone to come in. Like I said, people think like it's the questions. It's not always the questions. Yeah.
Okay, there's the big secret right there. That's excellent.
It's not always the question.
You mentioned the phone. Now I'm trying to, I've got mine here. This is like my business is based out of this, and is it a bad look to be on your phone if the second that you walk in, I silence the sucker and put it down. Is that a bad look? Is that a good look? I don't know.
I would prefer you to leave your phone in the car.
Ah.
I cannot even tell you how many times people think that they've silenced their phone and their phone goes off. And it is just, and I understand, like I said before, like but the conscious effort to be like, I am going to give all my time and attention to this person who's going to interview me, and I'm leaving my phone in the car, that speaks volumes. So, gotcha. And I know, because my business is on my phone too. And so I've got 3 different business emails, on there. I'd love to, when I've got a little bit of time, just kind of scroll through. And if I can answer something real quick, I feel accomplished and all the things. Yeah, no.
So skip it. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of totally turning my phone off before an interview because then it's not like I screwed it up. I still have the unpowered unit in my pocket, just because sometimes I've been at job interviews where I don't want to leave a $700 phone in the car.
Well, that's true. That is true. Sure. But if you do turn it off and have it in your pocket, that's one thing. But I do understand neighborhood. It's like, do I want to leave my phone here?
Like, that's going to be a broken window.
Really, do I want to work here? I don't know.
There are some great companies that are in crummy parts of town sometimes, and
that is true.
Whether the neighborhood decayed around them or is on the way back up, that's always something that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So now we've got a lot of the serious stuff on the way, and Barb, you've been doing just knocking this out of the park for some of this. So, a slight gear change here, because you mentioned you have a bunch of stories, and I'm sure, you have 20 years in the industry. You're going to have a bunch of stories. And I want this to kind of lead into a much deeper question. So this first one's a little bit less, and maybe a little funnier, if you will. But you mentioned that you've seen some pretty crazy interview gaffes. What's the worst thing you've seen somebody do?
Gosh, the worst. I'm gonna go with
or maybe
gentleman.
Top 3.
Yeah, there you go. I have 2 that really stick out.
Go for it.
The gentleman who I thought he was going to be such a this is so hard. I thought he was going to be such a great candidate. It was for the financial rep position.
Sure.
And he came in to the office area because there were a host of different offices. We were in a suite. He came into the suite and he asked where the restroom was. And he went. And when he came back,
I'm almost concerned now. You mentioned the restroom. I was like, oh God.
As you should be. He didn't zip up his pants. And there were some like I would like to say this. I would like to say he washed his hands and got some on his pants, but I don't think that's what that was. So when he walked back in, so mind you, I had seen him when he came in, and then I saw him when he left, and then he came back, and I'm like, okay, none of that was there before. So I, of course, didn't say anything to him because, actually we were about the same age, like 30s. Mm-hmm. And, but I did, when I went into the manager, I said, FYI, his fly's open. Maybe when you come in and he stands up, you could just give him he didn't. I don't know why he didn't. I have to say that was probably one of the shortest interviews. It just all went downhill from there. Wow. Not on my point. I didn't interview him. The manager did, but yeah, that was not good. And then I had a young lady that came in and she hadn't brushed her hair. She had yesterday's makeup on, which you could tell.
Ooh, okay.
It was like a walk of shame situation. It looked like she had the outfit on that she had worn out the night before the whole thing. So,
wow.
That wasn't a good look. Not a good look. So those 2 really stand out. The ones who you're applying for a maintenance position and you are in a maintenance position and you come and you show up in jeans, but you have a nice polo shirt on. I don't blink an eye at any of that.
Sure.
Because you came from work. I get it. But yeah, maybe brush your hair. It's a good place to start.
Good place to start.
It's a really good place to start.
Well, okay, so that we have a couple of do not do's there, which is good. But I asked you that question because I feel it's a bit connected to this next one, which again is a much deeper thing. Again, we're talking about a lot of serious things. So a little levity I think is useful. So you've seen some things that are like, whoa. And I've seen some really strange stuff too. I used to do some hiring for some of my past companies, and man, I don't ever want to get down on somebody because they act unusually or anything like that. But you kind of wonder how things go for them in the rest of their life. And again, not knocking them or anything like that, but like, man, you really, you do that, and people accept that. Okay, that's fine. So a lot of times, what I feel, and a lot of things that I've heard people in our listener circles say is that when they interview, they really love feedback. And I think obviously, your people who are your horror stories, they could definitely use feedback, but most of us would probably benefit from, maybe more professional level feedback of, hey, why didn't I get the job? Well, these qualifications, not you had your pants down or whatever it might be. So my question is why don't more hiring managers and HR departments give feedback to applicants? It seems to me like it would actually build the quality of applicant that you get.
Legally, nobody wants to do that.
But why not, I guess, is the question. And maybe that's what I fail to understand.
Yeah, you have to be so careful. So, and this would happen with corporate all the time, especially the higher level. They would, especially if they thought like we had a good connection.
Sure.
And they would be like, well, why? But yeah, I could have a good connection with them, but in my mind, I would know, because at the last corporate position that I held, which I left a year ago to start my full-time business, I would try to think about the culture at the manufacturing division.
Sure.
And I knew they wouldn't be good with the general manager or all those things. But that owner of that company specifically told me when I started working for him, if a candidate asks you, please do not ever tell them why. The lawyers had told them, you don't, especially in writing, you don't want to have that in writing, that somehow they could twist it and you'd end up with, with a lawsuit. So, I just don't, and it's very hard for me, very hard, and I have to say something that's even harder for me now with my consulting role is when people are applying for positions and their resume is just a mess. I kind of want to be like, I know you applied for this position. Can I help you?
Sure.
Nominal fee. I can help you with your resume. I can help you with LinkedIn. I can help you with these things because even the robots or they're not going to pick up because you don't even have the right words in your resume. So, but yeah, unfortunately, you really can't. Got
it. So I've heard that, the lawyers saying no. What are the lawyers telling company owners, HR departments? What exactly are they telling you not to do? And I guess I don't want to say, the why behind it is we don't want to get sued. But what are they afraid of getting sued for?
Well, there's so many discrimination things, because it can be if I interviewed 10 people and one of them was male and he didn't get the position, he could say he didn't get hired because he was male. Like, no matter what I said, if I would say something and he would take it a step further, then the EEOC could come after and say, how many people applied for this position? What were their ages? What were, all the things. So, and now with women, we're considered a protected class, like the minute you're, over 40, when you're 50, when, all the things. So there's just a host of things that it just starts this snowball. You can say the most innocent thing in the reply back. Like, we just, you didn't meet this, and this, and then that'll start it. And one of our divisions was in California. Ooh. And let me tell you, there are people in California that don't have jobs. They haven't had jobs for a while. They're professional interviewers, and they try to get you, and then they sue you, and that's how they live their life. So it's an interesting very interesting hiring people